They put a second back on the clock. 13 ticks left. They're going for it all with A.J. Brown. Catch is made by Seattle for the interception. Julian Love again.
Check out the left toe, Joe.
Yeah, his heel was an interception.
I mean, we still in the top teams in the league.
I love this.
And my thing is, once you get into the playoffs, all that don't matter no more. Last year, we lost 4 or 3 games last year. It didn't matter. We went to the Super Bowl. So if we continue to do what we got to do and improve, we got 3 beatable teams. Not even beatable, whoopable teams. We gonna whoop them. We got the Giants twice. Yeah. We need some confidence. Think about this, though. Imagine take you back all the way to, like, I don't know, 6th grade, 5th grade.
Yes, sir.
Right? And you got a hard schedule, but you have them little 2-3 games, like, we have these bums before we start the regular season. What the coach do?
What do you do?
We put everybody out there to get the confidence, get the momentum.
Yeah.
Got the dudes that's not that good getting all type of buckets. To get them confidence.
Hey, y'all. On this episode, we have a good friend of the show, good friend in general, Jeff Warren from the Philadelphia Sports Table podcast. Always got a shout out. It's the longest running Philadelphia sports podcast in the world. Jeff, how's it going?
Thanks,
man?
buddy. It's going all right, man. I'm still coming down from this Week 15 loss with the Birds. My gosh, what a complete debacle. This team is floundering.
What's a win?
But, yeah, exactly.
What are those?
Exactly. Other than that, I'm doing all right, buddy. And I enjoyed our conversation that we had before we hit the record button. Like you said, we're friends outside of this world of Philly sports, you know, whether we're talking the Eagles, Phillies, or Sixers. But yeah, let's get into this Eagles team, man. What a debacle and disappointment.
It really was, dude. I mean, at what point here did you really think, when you were watching the game, at what point did you say, like, the Eagles really could mess this up? Because for me, it kind of hit around early fourth quarter. I'm like, why are we letting these guys hang in the game? Jalen and them have punted the ball to me. I've seen number 10. Yeah. You shouldn't be wearing number. I agree with Deshaun Jackson. I don't know if he needs a technical retirement, but I do think the punter doesn't need number 10. It's got to be somebody who's like kind of decent. But
yeah, when
they punted the ball in the fourth quarter a couple times, I'm like, we really might figure this out. What about you? When did you actually get that kind of sports fan chill?
It was Jalen Hurts' first turnover of the game. It wasn't just the Jalen Hurts first interception. It was the type of throw to Quez Watkins. It was the fact that Quez Watkins didn't even try. He didn't even try to defend or even try to catch the ball. And look,
he was the DB on that one.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll say this too. Like, I've been a supporter of Quez Watkins, and I've always thought that if the Eagles wanted him to develop more, that he could. I think that he has had the talent, but he has shown us that nothing good has happened this season or even in previous seasons when the Eagles have actually thrown the ball to him. And even though the play, you know, there was pass interference on that play, and even though there was,
yes, there was.
Quez Watkins
100%.
did nothing. Yeah, he did nothing.
It's okay
to help out.
There's a pass interference on a lot of plays. A.J. Brown's getting pass interfered a lot.
Yeah. So it was at that moment in the game where I said, okay, this is the first turnover. Jalen has turned it over now.
Yep.
This is not going to be good news.
I wasn't really worried at that point. I was just done. That was the end for me with Quez. Like, you know, and then on this podcast, I've been supportive. And when I come on yours and others, I've also said, like, you know, speed like his doesn't just grow on trees.
Right.
But at this point, if I'm calling a game, because we're talking about championship team, we're not talking about some 6-7 team. If they were a 10-4 team who came into this season with wild card expectations, who didn't just basically have their quarterback outplay Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, then we're having a different conversation. We're talking about championship caliber. If I'm as a championship caliber defensive coordinator calling against this game, I'll say, all right, Quez Watkins, you're going to have to go beat me over the head 4 for 200 for 3 touchdowns. Go ahead, throw to him if you want to.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not worried about it. I mean, that was just crazy. That was Todd Pinkston-ish to allow that DB to just take that away. There's the second pick. The second pick there, that was one of the worst play designs I think I've seen in a situation like that. I mean, nobody other than Kenneth Gainwell could have really made a play that would have been helpful there. Jalen would have had to fit it over to AJ where he tried to for no good reason, really. And then, or he would have had, I think he would have had hit the tight end on the other sideline, and Kenneth Gainwell kind of blocked and released and got out the backfield. But it was just, they figured out how to get a defeat there.
I always like to ask the question why, whether it's, you and I talking prior to us hitting the record button, you and I talking about our industry that we work in. I always like to ask the question why.
Right.
Why did Jalen Hurts or Brian Johnson or Nick Sirianni, why did they feel like they needed to play hero ball at that point in the game?
Absolutely.
And I think there's something to be said about a certain level of arrogance that this Philadelphia Eagles team has had during the course of this season. They have been brought back down to reality over the past 3 weeks. And I think there's something to be said for bringing that arrogance down a bit. They needed to do that in order to be able to compete these last few weeks as they look potentially here towards the postseason and a potential run. I don't even want to say that because I don't even know if this team can beat the New York Giants here at this point if they don't get things together. But I think that level of arrogance needed to be challenged. It certainly was in Seattle, Matt, and we saw the results of it.
I just, wanted to make a note here. I couldn't really formulate a thought. I just want to go ahead and say a name, Sidney Brown.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you got to say about the tackling there? I mean,
tackling has been terrible in general over during the course of these past few weeks. But my gosh, I reading post game, a lot of insiders and folks that really know the game probably better than I do, saying he has so much potential. That potential certainly has not been coming out recently. It certainly didn't this past week. He was not playable out there because he was actually giving the Seattle Seahawks offense first downs consistently throughout the game. And look, I know there's a depth problem. There is certainly a depth issue with regard to the defense in general. They're one of the worst defenses in the league at this point. It's such a contrast in 180, Matt, from what we saw last season when they were so completely dominant. There isn't.
You always have stats for me over on PST. I got some stats for you.
Okay, get some stats here. Yes.
Since week 8, they have on third down, they've allowed 53%. 53% conversions on third down. 30 touchdowns to 6 picks since week 8.
Man. Matt Patricia wasn't going to be he wasn't going to be solving that problem.
Was fine. He held them to, it was just one really bad play design. I actually, I'm not, I wasn't thrilled with Matt Patricia, but I was like, okay, we needed to shake something up. And this is kind of, what we could do. Yeah. I wasn't too disappointed with them, without Slay, with Bradbury having to play DK. DK didn't really take over this game the way that he could have.
Yeah.
Part of that is Drew Lock, but Drew Lock also made that great, season throw to, Smith and Jigma, who ran past Bradbury like he wasn't even there.
Let's talk about that for a second, if you don't mind, Matt. If I can interrupt you really quick. James Bradbury in coverage against Seattle, 7 of 8 for 116 yards, 1 touchdown. He allowed a 118.8 passer rating for Drew Lock. It's incredible. He has allowed a 90.5 passer rating in coverage this year, giving up 9 touchdowns and only having 1 interception. Now, we take a look at some younger guys in Keely Ringo and Eli Ricks. They combined in coverage against the Seahawks, 0 for 5. 0 yards, 1 pass breakup, which was Ringo, 39.6 rating. It's amazing what has happened with James Bradbury this season. You and I have been talking about it on the PST post-game podcast. I've talked about it on the Honorable Mention podcast as well. When I've been on before, James Bradbury has certainly regressed. And look, we don't have crystal balls. That contract, obviously not the greatest in the world. It's here. There's not much that could be done about it at this point. Who knows how he's going to do in the offseason. But
how about Bradbury to safety?
Yeah.
When Slay gets back,
maybe,
the speed's just not there. Honestly, he's not. It's not. The problem is the speed, is that he's a smart player. It's not that because he almost sealed the game. I also want to talk about honorable mention. He almost sealed the game on an interception where he plays a short in from DK Metcalf, almost picks it off to end the game right there. So it's not that he doesn't understand or that he doesn't read coverages. It's just that sometimes, like I said, Smith and Jigba, the Seattle's offensive coordinator just said straight up, I'm going to line him up outside and just run past James Bradbury.
Yes. Yeah. Just
and
run
Drew
past
put
Bradbury.
it there.
Absolutely, because they've been seeing
no route, just run.
Just run a go route. Exactly. Because they've been seeing what we have been saying, Matt. I remember it was week 3 or week 4 when you were on PST post game, and we were talking about how slow James Bradbury looked, and we were pretty surprised by it too. I remember the first time you said that on our show, and I was like, you know what? I'm like, man, Matt is absolutely correct. It's like he's getting burnt out there, and it's not going to improve, folks. It's not going to improve.
I hope that somebody listens, it's not the biggest podcast, it hasn't had the long running like yours has, but I do hear some of the same things and people share it around and say that they liked it. So if somebody's listening, Bradbury to safety may be the move, because Sidney Brown right now is also just unplayable, just flat out.
I mean, especially after last game, again, not making tackles and allowing the Seattle Seahawks to convert on a number of third downs. You mentioned the stats. It's unacceptable.
On the outside contain where Kenneth Walker just shakes him just flat out of the stadium. He almost vanished.
Yeah.
I heard an urban legend that, if you get shaken just even an inch more than what's, you just turn into, turf pellets.
Yeah.
You just vanish.
God,
I don't know how you get shaken any more than he was.
If I was out there, my body, I'd spontaneously combust. I'd be like, oh my gosh, just
fall. It was bad. It was really bad. And he does have. What I will say, to his credit, is that he's in the right spots.
Yeah,
he's just not a playmaker yet. The plays haven't come yet. So. Maybe on some plays, but he can't be a mainstay on your defense. There are just situations here, and I'm just going to call it out because everybody else is seeing it. It's not like this is some major mystery. These offensive coordinators are saying your guys aren't good enough. You're not going to beat us just with your front four. I'm sorry, Howie Roseman. You've finagled enough people out of stuff, but you keep letting Chauncey Gardner-Johnson go. You keep letting other people walk as linebackers who actually prove that they can play in your system, but you just jettison them because you don't want to pay them $3 or $4 million. Your running backs, you have this great offensive line, Howie, but you don't commit to the run because you tell your coaches that they must pass to a certain degree. We know that that's going on.
Yep.
And then you're not really investing in the running back. So when they are getting the runs, it's these DeAndre Swift type players every year who are good players, but you're not ever going to be able to consistently stuff it down. We'll see. They can turn it around, but I think that these coordinators and these coaches are just saying, we know what you're trying to do, and it's not going to be enough.
These next 3 games, Matt, are extremely winnable, I believe, for this team, who at one point was the favorite in this league to go to the NFC Championship game. I absolutely believe that it is still within them. I think they're, whether it's AJ Brown talking about the disappointment, whether it's the overall confusion, I think that we see, losing 3 straight games, the way that this team has lost them with the talent and personnel, it's simply inexcusable for us as fans, because at the end of the day, it's coaches, it's quarterback. Everything about this team has not been good, and nobody on this team is on the same page. Feels like the Super Bowl hangover is like really, really finally here at this point. But I think they can right the ship, because I take a look at the offense. They look really good on their opening drives the last 3 weeks, and then it just tapers off. Ask the question, why? Again, is that because Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson are scripting the open plays, and then maybe Brian Johnson's kind of floundering in game on his own? Or is it because Brian Johnson is a great game planner, but he's struggling to kind of get that feel for the game as it's happening? Is he calling better plays than people think? And is Hurts missing reads and not taking some of the easy throws? I think we saw some of that as well.
Oh my God.
It's a combination of so much at this point. I believe they can get it together. I really do believe they can get it together. It's not just fandom talking. We saw 10 really, really good games from this team. Say what you want about Kansas City. Was not the greatest game in the world for the team, but they found a way to win. It reminded me of the old New England Patriots where, you know what, Tom Brady was down, but they found a way to win. Nobody can say for sure what's going to be happening. Hopefully it's hopefully they're going to improve with the feel of the game, I think, and they have the opportunity over these next few weeks here, but it needs to get figured out. I think it can.
Well, health is number one.
Yep.
So that'll always come into play. I think it's likely that the Cowboys would go ahead and lose to the Dolphins. I would think that, considering that they were just run all over by the Buffalo Bills, I would assume that the number one running team in the NFL would be able to go and do that. But we'll see. That's why the NFL is interesting.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
So if the Eagles, they made the move at defensive coordinator, which was a lot of people have labeled a panic move. If they were to go ahead, let's say the Eagles, they repeat and lose 17-20 to the Giants. Do they make a move like that for offensive coordinator?
I think it's a great question. I don't think they do that because I think it gives instability to one of the most important people on your team, which is Jalen Hurts.
Yes.
And Jalen Hurts has had a great relationship with Brian Johnson for quite some time now. And I don't think you disrupt that, even though there's inconsistencies going on. I think they both need to figure it out together, and they both need to align with each other in order to figure out what the problems actually are. And I don't think a change is going to necessarily help. I think it would be better, actually, to keep those guys together for the remainder of the season.
Yes. And just some time ago, I totally agree with you, but there's always those conversations whenever
absolutely.
the Eagles don't play well, firing is cheap politics. I think
it absolutely is. It drives me crazy because it's like, all right, well, who are you going to put in there then? Like, seriously, have you thought about, I don't like what I'm seeing. Let's make a change. What?
Steve Walsh.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Just stop it already. What's the alternative then? Okay. Mm-hmm. It's like we talk about the why.
Or Bill Walsh. I'm sorry. Not Steve Walsh.
I know who you meant. Yeah. but you ask the why, but why keep them together so that they can take care of it together?
Right.
Because they've done it before. There is positive precedent for Brian Johnson and Jalen Hurts to understand what they need to do in order to have productive offensive movement down the field. They know, and they just need to somehow get on the same page. So much of this is mental. It drives me insane because you can't necessarily just fix mental at the flip of a switch. You just can't do it. We've talked a number of times on the PST podcast show with various guests about, whether it's sports medicine, the psychology of sports. We're seeing that right now with this Philadelphia Eagles team. This is all psychology right now. It's not a lack of talent. It's not a lack of preparation. I do not believe that at all. I believe a lot of this is psychological and mental, and I think they can get it back together.
Well, 3 wins would be good. You get 2 wins, you feel okay. Sure, you'll take 2 wins instead of 0 wins or 1 win. But you walk into the playoffs, to the extent that psychological, they're going to have to go out to Santa Clara and really face their fears, because they might go out there and get their asses kicked.
Maybe
because they're not the 1 seed is kind of gone now.
Yeah,
after that loss.
Yep. It absolutely is. Look, they could get their asses kicked, like you said. I think we need to see, though, over these next 3 weeks, if mentally and psychologically they can get it back together. And I think that last game of the season against the New York Giants, if we see that they are able to get it back together, they get confidence back within themselves, specifically from an offensive standpoint here, then I think you could potentially see a very consistent and cohesive Philadelphia Eagles team in the playoffs. And what does that mean against a team like the 49ers? Not sure. I think it'd be a pretty damn good game if they are able to get back to their mental basics.
It's a nice little, semi-baseball type series. You get the Giants, then you get the Cards, like the kind of, which should be like a JV team kind of, feel. But you see that the Cards are kind of scrappy. They dropped 29 on the Niners. They beat the Cowboys earlier this year. So, they're not, there are no gimme wins in the league. I just don't think that other teams will fear them unless they're just wiping these guys off the field. We're getting Marcus Mariota action. Okay, then you can walk into the playoffs from the sports psychology point of view. You get kind of more of that fear from them.
I agree. No, I agree completely. But I think a more consistent Jalen Hurts and the trepidation I think that he has been playing with, and again, the hero ball, the trepidation then leads to the hero ball. And if he's able to get that figured out within his own brain, I think we're going to see the Jalen Hurts.
He is the hero. He already is the hero.
That is true.
This team is he's Josh Allen. I mean, Josh Allen now, 8-6 Josh Allen, all respect to him, who's one of the top 5 football players in the world. Josh Allen now that he's 8 on the plus side of 500, now he's getting a lot of respect, a lot of conversation for MVP. Jalen Hurts is doing the same thing for the Philadelphia Eagles that Josh Allen's doing. Sick, banged up knee, all of that. You just, you don't need to make that I've proven that I've arrived as a passer throw. That's what that A.J. Brown throw was on the sideline. There was no good reason for that other than I'm just the guy. I want that I'm him moment. And we didn't need that at that time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He's had so many of those moments that he didn't need it at that particular point in time.
The Quez, and there is the underthrowing of the deep ball. If Jalen's not seeing it early, if Jalen doesn't let it go with the anticipation, he's underthrowing the deep balls. And I'm not big on that. He's weak. It's not a weak arm thing.
Exactly.
It's just he throws it better that way. A lot of people do. That's the right way to do it, is because it gives your wide receiver the best chance before the DB even knows the ball's in the air.
Exactly. So. And that's where we're seeing the trepidation, as I've been mentioning. That's where the trepidation is happening. Yeah. He's taking way too long. Yes. Just taking way too long to get rid of that ball.
Well, a little Giants action. Maybe the Giants will end up being 7-10 because they'll sweep the Eagles this year, and then we'll have a 5-seed Eagles too. The Giants end up with they stumble into Danny Dimes as their franchise quarterback, and we help them.
What a disaster of a team it is! It could be worse, Eagles fans. You could be New York Giants fans.
Yes, the potentially 7 or 8. They could end up with 8, right? Because they're 5-9. They could win out.
Happen. It's not going to happen. I don't think. I really don't.
Oh, we'd be total clowns. We would be. I mean, I mean the postseason hype videos on social media, they would just flounder. I mean, I don't even want to see an underdog mask. Like we would deserve to be like, dogs, because
we'd be digging graves.
Yes,
they'd be digging graves.
And they're in the playoffs now, so they are a playoff team. Like they're making their destiny. Are you guys about to be a team that gets laughed at for the next year? Because if you go out like this, if this team goes out like this, then they're going to no matter what they do, they could be 13-0, 14-0. This time next season, people will be like, okay, are you guys just going to choke it up again?
What does it matter, right? Yeah, what does it matter? We saw what happened last season. Yeah.
It's how the Phils are unfortunately in that position that until they now get past they got to basically win the World Series. Bryce has a little bit of extra pressure. I don't know. Yeah.
That's definitely a conversation for another day. Yes,
absolutely.
Yep.
So Thursday night football, Saints are 4-point underdogs at the Rams. Who you got there?
I got the Rams. I think the Rams have been playing some fun football from what I have seen. I'm going to take the Rams, and I think Cooper Kupp is kind of getting back into to his right physical frame, and that's who Matt Stafford needs. So I'm going with the Rams.
Rams, yes, playoff team.
Yep.
Bengals 2.5-point favorites at the Steelers. Who you got there?
Oh my gosh. I am going to I think the Steelers, they're just a scrappy team this year. I think they stink. It's like they stink, but they win games when they need to win games because they're scrappy. And it's in Pittsburgh. I'm actually going to go with the Steelers. I think we're seeing this year how home field advantage. Just look at the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, they will kick anybody's ass down in Dallas. When they're out of Dallas, man, they have a tough time playing cohesive football. And I think we're seeing that throughout the league this year with a lot of different teams. Maybe not the Carolina Panthers, but there's something to be said with regard to home field advantage this year. And I think it's one of the underrated storylines this year in the NFL, quite frankly. So I'm going to go with Steelers.
The Bills are getting 12 points at the Chargers. You think that's enough?
I do. Yeah. I think the Bills could actually win by like 3 touchdowns. I think coming off that win this past week, I think is going to give them momentum, confidence, and a will and desire to just move up the AFC ranks. I really do these last few weeks here.
Those guys are looking scary after all of that. And to your earlier point about the Birds, now they would, if the Bills win, they'll have one fewer win than the Eagles already have. That's the whole thing about sports psychology. When are you hot?
Go. Yep, absolutely.
And the Chargers are as good as a gimme right now. I mean, after 1 o'clock on Sunday, Browns are 2.5 point favorites at the Texans. This is a matchup against the 5 and the 6, if I'm not incorrect, in the AFC.
Yeah. I really like. I'm probably going to go with the Browns in this game. However, CJ Stroud, do we know if he's going to be playing?
I don't know, in or out. I believe it was concussion protocol. So
yeah, as we're recording this here on a Wednesday morning, I'm not sure if CJ Stroud is playing, then the Texans are going to win this game.
Oh, you think so?
Sure.
Okay,
I absolutely do.
They beat the Browns. Okay,
there is just some special magic I think that has gone on in Houston this year. I think DeMeco Ryans is a fantastic coach. It's not just his coaching, his leadership. And what he was able to do in terms of providing that leadership to a rookie quarterback coming from Ohio State, by the way, when Ohio State quarterbacks usually don't do all that well in the NFL,
right?
As history tells us. I think DeMeco Ryans is fantastic. I think he is one of the most underrated head coaches in this league. And if CJ Stroud plays, I'm taking the Texans.
Okay. Lions are 3.5 point favorites at the Vikings. Who you got there?
Lions have been fun to watch this year, and it's something I never thought I would say in my lifetime, that the Detroit Lions and football are fun. I'm taking the Detroit Lions. It would be so great to see this team. Like, aside from our Eagles fandom and my Eagles fandom, they are the one most intriguing team. In fact, we're going to be talking about it on the PST podcast show this week. They are the one team to me that is so incredibly intriguing because of their history, their team history, constantly bungling things from a front office standpoint and personnel standpoint. Now they actually have a team that is playing good, fun football. They're an intriguing team, and I'm going with the Lions this week.
Same. Totally. I don't think they flubbed this one against the Vikings. Vikings will move down a little bit in the rankings, but they're also a scrappy team. Daniil Hunter and those guys, those are good football players. So it'll be an interesting game. I don't think they blow them out. I don't think they maybe beat them by 10-ish at the top, but it could be a 3-point game as well. So
yeah, absolutely.
4 o'clock on Sunday, the Jaguars are 1 point favorites or 1 point dogs at the Bucks.
Jaguars play terrible on the road. They just don't play good football on the road. And it's disappointing because they are a team that I've consistently followed and have enjoyed following, and especially since Dougie P has been down there, what he's been able to do to that organization and team after Urban Meyer. And looking at the Buccaneers, now this is going to sound really bizarre, okay? I'm going to go to fantasy football here because I am in a standard league where I have 2 quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes and Baker Mayfield. I swear to God, Matt,
it's an interesting conundrum right now. Yep.
10 weeks out of this season, I should have started Baker Mayfield. Haven't started him one time, except for on Patrick Mahomes bye week. And because from a fantasy standpoint, Baker Mayfield has been a better fantasy player than Patrick Mahomes this year. There is absolutely risk. Yes,
that's the thing is, you know what you're gonna get. You're not gonna get the stinker. See, the problem is if you throw in Baker, and maybe you do it, and maybe you should, especially if you're still playing meaningful fantasy football. But at this point, you have such the risk quotient is so much higher when you throw in a Baker Mayfield because you may get that -4. Patrick may give you the 11 points. That's disappointing when Baker puts up 30.
Right.
But do you want to take that risk that you get that -8?
Exactly. It's that risk, man. It is that risk. But in this game, I actually am going to go with the Buccaneers because they are at home. I could see it being a last-minute field goal to win the game. Like I said, the Jags just haven't been playing well on the road this year. So I'm going with the Buccaneers.
Cowboys are 1.5-point dogs at the Dolphins. What do you got on that one?
As I said earlier, too, going back to the theme of home field advantage, the Cowboys just do not play well on the road. They got the crap kicked out of them this past week, foot on their throat up in Buffalo. I think that's going to work in Miami's favor in terms of sports psychology, like we were talking about earlier. I'm going with the Dolphins.
Wow, it would be a tough one. It would be a tough Christmas to start. Should the Cowboys pull that one off?
Yes.
Putting the Eagles in the position to have to win the game at the Giants, basically, because that would be an impressive victory.
Yep.
To go down to Miami and beat them. So, but what about that? Regardless, who you got? The Eagles are 12-point favorites in Philadelphia in a must-have divisional game.
I think if this game happened 6 weeks ago, we'd say, oh my gosh, absolutely. Eagles by 12, by 2 touchdowns, by even 3 touchdowns. I think the Eagles are going to win this game. I'm picking the Eagles to win this game. I don't know if they do it by 12. It may only be by 10. So it may only be by 9.
29 birds. Right now, you're catching me off a 3-game losing streak.
Yep.
They've just got to win this game. It's like
absolutely.
The Adrian. Just win.
It's at the link. I have high hopes that we are not going to get boos at halftime. If boos come out at halftime, there's going to be major issues the rest of the game in the third and fourth quarter. But I'm going birds this week.
Ravens are going to Santa Clara, 5.5-point underdogs in that one on Monday Night Football after the birds, after the Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, this is a potential Super Bowl matchup here. That's how it's going to be hyped. That's how it's going to be billed over these next couple days. And I think it's going to be
it's a rematch. That's right.
Yeah, it's going to be one of the most extraordinary matchups this entire season. I am going to go with the San Francisco 49ers. Again, I think Christian McCaffrey has been such an incredible athlete this year, staying healthy in general, being able, touchdown after touchdown after touchdown, game after game after game. If they don't have Christian McCaffrey, they don't win this game. I truly believe that. And I can't see him faltering, quite frankly. I think the Niners win this.
Yeah, this would be true championship medal, and they would prove a lot especially if they win it in that convincing fashion. I think it ends up being more of a 3-point game, but I probably would go with San Francisco as well in this one.
Yep.
I don't love the Ravens corners. I think Deebo Samuel right now, you got the morale for Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, and Brock Purdy are on 1,000. And so I think that they're going to find ways to get Kittle the ball on tough third downs, unless Lamar, but you do have a quarterback on the other side. So that's why I think it's going to be closer than the line. I think it's more of a 3-point game, but the Niners probably pull it off.
I agree.
Yeah. Right now, if you had to say, what's your percentage chance out of 100 that the Birds make it to the NFC Championship?
At this point, at this particular point, as we're heading into Week 16, I would say a 15% chance. It's very low.
Neighborhood.
Yeah. It's low. It is low. They got to get right mentally. Sports psychology needs to really work in their favor, and I think they have the opportunity to do it over these next 3 games, given their opponents. We will see, Matt. We will see.
It would have to be 2 playoff wins because the one is definitely gone bye-bye, especially if the Niners do what Jeff and I think they're going to do and beat the Ravens. Basically, I think they would all but lock it up.
Yes.
So Eagles would have to go on a 2-game, not only beat the Giants, which no one's sure we're even going to do, that also win 2 of the playoffs.
Yep.
So, interesting time. Where can we follow you, Jeff, in the meantime and after?
I have been enjoying Threads. I've been enjoying Threads just like you, my friend. I've been enjoying it at Mr. Jeff Warren over on Threads. You can also find the Philadelphia Sports Table podcast at Philadelphia Sports Table on Threads as well. And we also have all of our podcast shows on PhiladelphiaSportsTable.com, our website. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcast. Oh, darn it. I mentioned Spotify. I was not going to mention Spotify anymore. I'm tired of that freaking service. They really screw artists.
Ooh, I'll have to get into that with you. I want to find that.
It's just awful. The billions of dollars that they make and how they just completely screw artists. I'm actually not. I'm actually, even though we are on that platform, I'm not promoting our podcast at all.
And you had used that link all the time.
A lot. Yeah, I have. And it's just been recently where I found out, what artists get paid on Spotify. It's horrible considering how much they bring in as a corporation. So anyway, but yeah, that's where you can find us. Apple Podcasts, folks. Apple Podcasts. That's great. Or PhiladelphiaSportsTable.com.
Absolutely. Well, I'll definitely follow along. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you all so much for listening.
Great being on with you, my friend.
See ya.
We've lost games, because I could be better. That'll change everything, and I accept that. It starts with the little things, how committed we are to doing what we're doing, and it all starts with me, the quarterback. And so, it's a challenge that I'm embracing. I have embraced.